Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's November the 29th of 2024. I am Nick, joined by Quinn,
That's
and
me.
we are bringing the manga vibes to you this evening. Thank you all for joining us here on the special Friday recording time.
What vibes are you going to be bringing, Nick?
What vibes?
Yeah, how would you describe your vibes?
Generally negative. That's kind of just my general energy as a person, you know? Like, I don't do this willfully, Quinn. I'm just naturally this way.
That's what, first and foremost, that's what we love about you. Please never change. I think if you hadn't responded the way you did to Sidcraft, I would have been a little concerned.
Oh yeah.
So, we want that about you.
Every now and again, I just gotta come out of the gate with a lot of Nick didn't like this and he's not ashamed of it energy, just to get the people going, Nick was too harsh this time. And it's like, you know what? Maybe, but that's how you know that things are right with the world.
Yeah, look, guys, I mean, they're not, but guys, Nick is, we didn't get where we are by having, leveled and, quiet opinions on Bleach and Naruto. It doesn't... It doesn't work like that. So, we will have these opinions, and I will try to complement your negative energy with my stinky and unhinged energy, which I had because earlier today, Nick, I watched Joker 2. I decided I'm calling it Joker 2 because I don't remember how to say it, and I don't want to look stupid. Tuker, yeah. Look. This movie getting universally panned. It was unceremoniously dumped from theaters, I think, after 3 weeks, which is
very quickly
an absurdly short time. To give the context for people who don't care not about movies, the first Joker made $1 billion. With a B, $1 billion. Not many movies do that. So for
even in this day and age of inflation and all that crap,
I think to this point, we haven't had $1 billion. I mean, we had 2 last year, I think, but I don't think we've had $1 billion movie this year. For example, there's a chance that.
Wow, really?
I'm trying to think. I think Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, got to $1 billion. Sorry, so scratch that. But it's very difficult to do that. Is the point, and Joker 2 was the sequel to $1 billion movie, and it is wildly one of the most antagonistic pieces of art I have ever experienced. This movie despises the original, really does not seem to care about an audience enjoying it, and is a musical in which everything is not an original song, and they have Lady Gaga, a Juilliard trained musician, and they make her sound like dog shit. She intentionally, when she sings, does not use her normal singing voice. And it is so baffling and alien. I absolutely love it. I cannot stress to you how much I enjoyed the anarchy of this piece of art, which will almost certainly end Todd Phillips's, blockbuster career, because I cannot imagine a more embarrassing sort of moment at Warner Brothers when you're like, all right, what did the last one make? $1 billion. What did this one make? They're like 200 million, and it lost money on its budget. So
that's weird because I have actually seen people have takes about the movie that sound vaguely similar to what you just described, as in just congratulating it on having no interest in being good, basically.
It's astonishing because the first one, was a success for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is it tapped into a particular part of the audience that wanted to connect with it. I hated the first Joker. I thought it was awful. But I'm like, in the same way, like I watched Boondock Saints earlier this year and also thought that was a dog shit movie. I recognize some movies aren't made for me. The idea that this movie then came out after the first one was such a huge success, and it was like, what's the most grating and abrasive thing I could add to this Joker movie? What if I make it a musical? And
Right.
I just keep thinking about the one or two poor schlubs who saw and loved the first movie and just did not pay attention to the news after that. They didn't hear like how this movie was going to be a sequel for like the past 2 years it's been in production, and they're just
Right.
saying in the theater like, why the fuck does everybody keep singing? What is happening?
Apparently the budget was like triple the first one. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Again, it's astonishing. Again, like you would assume you would create the sequel to a $1 billion movie to be the safest thing in the world. Like Super Mario Brothers made $1 billion. When they make
Right.
Super Mario Brothers 2, that is,
Oh, yeah.
they're not taking any risks. Like,
They're not going to do a Super Mario Brothers 2, the video game.
yeah, exactly. They're gonna put out the same shit you enjoyed. So the idea that this one is so adamantly like, fuck you for enjoying the first one, and this one won't be good either. But I'm sticking. Like everyone's committed. Like it takes actual talent, I think, to make Lady Gaga sound as bad as she does.
I watched Sleepy Hollow last night for the first time.
Is that which one is that? Is that the
That's the Tim Burton take on Sleepy Hollow that's got Johnny Depp as Ichabod for some reason.
because he's Tim Burton, I guess.
Because he's Tim Burton and he uses almost all of the same actors in all of his goddamn movies. Christopher Lee has a role in it.
Oh, well, I do love Christopher Lee.
Oh, he's fantastic. But it was the first time I had watched it. It's a goofy movie, but I mean, it's a Tim Burton film. What do you fucking expect?
You know what's a goofy movie?
A goofy movie?
A goofy movie. All right.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Let's talk about manga, Nick. We have so many series to talk about. We're going to start.
Undead Unluck.
Yes, with Undead Unluck. This is chapter 232, Assault. We get a color page spread of all of the Union members running into battle because we also get a color page at the start. This was the chapter that came with the big announcement that Undead Unluck is started its climax, its conclusion. We'll get to that, I'm sure, by the end. But this is a big color page. It's very funny, though, because this is a very big moment where Andy and Fuko are like, all right, and you said, time for the final battle. And then we get this color page of everybody running in. But then we either get a flashback without panels or everyone just stops for a moment so Fuko can address all of the changes that have happened in the past, 3 chapters. So there's a discussion of, how long they think the split for Victor and Andy is. And Andy says probably about 10 minutes. And Fuko is very shocked by this. She's like, oh my gosh, Mr. Victor, you're here. I didn't even expect you. Oh, and Juez, you've got Unjustice. And
hey,
yeah,
you.
Justicia. Julia says, you can just call me Julia, as usual. And it's fine. Just call me Julia. Julia Justicia. This was the name that was entrusted to me in this loop, and I want to cherish that. And I think that's a very, very cute moment. She does turn to Victor, though, and she's like, you can call me Juez, though, because you've known me too long to do anything else. And that's also very sweet.
There's definitely, it feels as though there's a lot of intimate body posturing between her and Victor, right away. Mm-hmm. That opening 2-page spread, everyone's in a big, yeah, let's go get him action pose. Fuko is doing this thing where she's, piggybacking on Andy, so she's going to fire a gun. If you look over at Juiz and Victor, she is, she's looking towards their foe. She looks like she is going to pull him into a kiss at any second.
Yeah, I mean, he princess carries her everywhere, which to be fair, that is primarily how Fuko gets carried around a lot.
That's true.
But it does make sense, even though Julia herself an incredibly accomplished swordswoman. Her power is just sometimes I blink and you nuke yourself. So, you know what? Why not go into battle getting, bridal carried? It's fine.
I'm just going to be comfortable, man.
Yeah. Fuko has a moment where she's like, oh, this is going to be great. We can fight together. No worries. And we have Andy on our side here, too. Hey, wait a minute. Why the fuck is Andy and Victor here?
What?
Yeah, she has a little freak out moment. I guess it didn't make the same assumption all of us made, which is, when Death sliced Andy in half, that enabled him to basically let Victor out and have his own body.
Man, remember that character?
No, intentionally, I don't. So basically, he's like, all right, cool, I was able to come out. But at that moment, there's a light. It goes into Sun, and everyone's like, that's the only master rule left. It's Soul, 100%. And we see Soul, who is kind of webbed up inside of Sun in I am part of its biological structure now. Like there's all these fleshy tendrils and everything hanging off of him. And Soul's not in a great mood because all of his friends are dead. And he's like, I am so tired of watching you pathetic glitches do your pathetic glitched moves. So listen here. 2 people cannot exist in the same world. Souls are 1 per person. Even if it's a temporary split, I'm not going to allow it. One of you is leading the party, so make it clear. Which one is the main player, Undead? So, we have a quick moment where Victor and Andy kind of look to each other, and he's like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I mean, who gives a shit, really?
We're gonna kill this guy anyway, so we gotta listen to him.
we don't really exist by following the rules, so they do a big fighting combo attack sort of thing, and Andy's just like, hey, you really got things kind of twisted there, Soul. You made this comment about me leading the party, so I'm kind of figuring how you're reading things here. And while this is happening, there's a bunch of action going on. And Andy continues like, you probably think this was a story started by Undead and Unjustice, and then eventually it became a story about Undead and Unluck. And while this is happening, there are these little effects going off. Soul, or Victor rather, is starting to break through this barrier in front of Soul. Oh man, he's doing these attacks really quickly. It's very, very dangerous.
His planet bubble thing on Big Soul. Yeah.
Yes. And Andy's like, hey, you're wrong about all of that. We're just the catalysts, the ones to awaken the countless heroes inhabiting this world. And at that point, there is just a barrage of attacks that just lays Soul down for a moment. He is overwhelmed by the amount of attacks he's getting hit by. And Andy just continues, we're the catalysts and nothing more. As the one who presides over souls, you should understand that more than anyone. You didn't make souls with any special difference between them, right? Everyone's the same. From the day we were plopped onto the face of this world, each and every one of us has shared the lead role. And every member of Union essentially is up here in the sky with a little logo giving their power. Undecrease, unavoidable, etc., etc. They're all here.
Every one of us has shared the lead role, which is why 4 of us are in the foreground and everyone else in the background.
Everyone is equally
Everyone
as important.
Is equal.
Now, if you want
Undead, Unjustice, Undead, Unluck.
If you...
I'm trying.
If I was going to say... Now, if you asked me right now, what does Unback do? I cannot tell you. We never got an arc to really fully explain it. I'm sure there's a volume extra somewhere that'll list it just for all you nerds. But Andy's just like, isn't this what you wanted? Like, all of us are equally as important in defeating you or whatever. And Soul, very angry, just kind of squeezes his fist, and Andy notices something. He's like, oh, has it been 10 minutes already? And Victor's like, no. Their bodies are being forcefully merged back together. And Victor, to his complete And Total Credit is just like, all right, well, looks like things aren't gonna go the way we hoped out. I'll back out. But you have Unjustice, so use it to your advantage. The rest is up to you. And there's a moment where we hear a voice calling in the distance that says, hey, what are you two boys cozying up to each other for? And Soul is like, wait, what the fuck? And hey, Nick, it's Rip. Which, I shouldn't act like it's a character who just showed up, but Rip didn't have the memories of the previous loop where he eventually became like a radical murderer to try to save his girlfriend. So he shows up and he's like, hey, you helped me out a ton, and I'd feel like crap if I was the only one to have a happy ending with my 2 wives. He doesn't say that part out loud, but we know that's what he's thinking.
We know.
So he asks, oh gosh, what's her name? Latla. He asks Latla, he's like, I need to do it like this, right? And she says, yep, if Unrepair rips through those 2, they'll become unhappy. I guarantee it. And he attacks with Unrepair, presumably charged on a cellular energy. I don't know what the term would be, but soul level. And splits the 2 of them in half because he attacked their soul essentially. They can't repair, so they can't rejoin. They are forcefully split. And because of that, we end the chapter on a 2-page spread of Andy and Victor rather, using unlimited dead roll and or dead road. And they end the chapter with, I think it's still Andy. Andy says a lot this chapter. He says, you see that, Soul? You're up against the last and strongest union.
Yep.
I think this chapter was decent. I like Andy's speech. It's unfortunately a disconnect in what the story wants us to feel and what we, the audience, have actually felt, which is like, all these characters are important. And I'm like, some of them didn't even get even remotely an arc. Like, Bunny got picked up off screen and tragedy was averted off screen. And they did that for someone else. Like, you can't tell me that all of these characters are equally important.
It's pretty wild that I had the big thing last week saying, why can't we get fights for these characters? And you said, Nick, this is expected. This is what Undead Unluck does. We almost never get important fights with anyone other than Andy and Fuko and Juiz. And then this chapter says, boy, all these characters other than Andy and Fuko and Juiz sure are important.
It is extremely funny that there is that moment of like, all of us are important, but these 4 are in the foreground.
Very important.
Yeah, and if you even want to go beyond that, Nico is the next biggest name after that, which also tracks. He's the only other one who got like a solo fight. I still didn't mind it. As mentioned, though, this does appear to be the end for Undead Unluck coming up. I imagine maybe a couple months, if even that. I don't think there's been like a specific date given to it, but this also isn't like that big of a series that I think it would get its own little announcement.
It might not get an announcement. This could be done in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, if someone told me next chapter's the last chapter, I'll be like, damn, that's crazy. But sure, like, you know, we can't guarantee that it's going to go. But I still enjoyed this chapter to some extent and looking forward to seeing where we go. Like, are they just, because again, Julia Unjustice could like, I don't, theoretically, can't Soul's fucking head just explode? Like, I don't know.
I will stop you. Oh, no, I won't.
Yeah. I guess I actually am just going to sit down here.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just think about my life and how much it sucks now.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
All my friends are dead.
Wow, this really sucks. Looks at him again. It's like, oh, life's great.
Oh, man. I had to smile through my shitty scenario now, too. This blows.
Yeah, okay. I've kind of just like accepted that it's like, well, I guess that we're just wrapping things up now. So I'm kind of like beyond being angry about this.
Sure.
So we're gonna move on from here over to Blue Box, chapter 174, Only Basketball. Last time, Chinatsu's father demanded that she move into his new apartment with him, moving out of Taiki's place because he doesn't trust the 2 of them while they're in a relationship together to live under the same roof. Taiki said, hey, how about you let me live with you instead so that she can keep on training for basketball. And we pick up with them, Taiki kind of, like being like forcefully friendly as a new house guest. And he says like, yeah, I'll stay here instead of Chinatsu senpai because it's tough. I got permission from my parents. He's got that like, like forced smile, like, closing the eyes, happy open mouth and everything. And eventually Chinatsu's father does say, all right, fine. Your family has to take care of my daughter, so I can't refuse. Like that wouldn't be fair. He also has brought food because his mother gave him some to bring over, to be not so, selfish house guest. It's a very nice gesture. He offers to make curry. There's a bug in here. But he says, you don't have to do that. I'm not going to make some kid take care of me. So he's like, yeah, we're going to order takeout. And Taiki's like, but I've got the ingredients.
Yeah, this was like a real moment where I was like, I mean, I understand. I would also be hideously uncomfortable if I was like, hey, my daughter has to come stay with
16-year-old.
me. Yeah, and her 16-year-old boyfriend shows up instead and is like, hey, don't worry, Dad. He calls him Dad later or something like that.
Yeah,
so, he's like, hey, Pops, don't worry about it. I'll make curry for you. Just being like, what the fuck? No, you aren't. But then I would stop when he's like, but I bought the ingredients. I'd be like, I hate food waste so much. All right, fine.
We cut to the next morning. Chinatsu is at the gym when Taiki comes in, so she goes to catch up with him and says, hey, how was my dad? And Taiki's like, he's super nice. He fears to be literally disintegrating as he forces that. But he says, I mean, nothing really happened, I tried to make conversation, and there was a really weird moment where he's like, did you know January 22nd's curry day? Really? January 15th is my birthday.
I bleed. My heart bleeds so much for poor Taiki, because I'm like, that is my death. Like, a conversation is like, where you're like, I just need anything. You're like, it's actually National Chicken Wing Day. I firmly believe most of these holidays were invented just to make small talk and just to get nothing from any of them. So I would like fall apart. I'd be like, I need you to respond to me positively. I need you to tell me I'm funny, entertaining, or I'm going to scream.
And Chinatsu's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. He's just kind of like that. Not even like really worried about it. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds like him. He's not able to make conversation with anyone. She then apologizes and says, like, I know that like it would make more sense if I went to live with my dad. I'm sorry that I'm robbing you of your practice time. And he says, what are you talking about? Now, this was my idea. And anyway, look, I got to learn to like be more independent from my parents. I've got to be able to interact with people in the outside world. This is, it's like a mini vacation. He really, tries to put her mind at ease. So she says, okay, well, if you're going this far for me, I've got to get the results. And if I get the results, then maybe my dad will accept our relationship too. So they're making the most of it. Yes. She heads back off to practice. And then we cut over while we're in the gym to Kyo. There's a funny little moment where Ayame like awkwardly sidles up to him. We even get like a couple panels of her like, standing a few feet away, and then
good stuff.
And so she asks like, hey, so is Chinatsu's dad back? And he goes like, yeah, it sounds like it. And so Ayame's like, oh, I knew it. And we get a little blip that indicates like she heard it from her intel source, Karen. It's like, oh yeah, because Karen's besties with Chinatsu, and so she just hears these things occasionally. And then they're just like talking about it because she says, yeah, I actually met him when I was a little kid. He had this real no shenanigans vibe going on. No shenanigans sounds like the perfect way to describe this man.
Oh yeah. This is a guy who, like, do you ever feel like you would get compared to this person, Nick?
Yes.
Because here's the thing. I feel like the strong difference between the two of you is when I approached you about doing Mario Party Bowser Land 50 turns, you seemed somewhat excited for it.
Somewhat. I was like, I will crush you.
Well, that's what we need to find. We need to find Shinatsu's dad's Mario Party, where I don't know how you did it. It's a game of luck, but you would still somehow found like 3 blocks with stars in them. So clearly you are just bored for it.
There's that one picture that I think Skitch took of me where it just sums up the entire experience where I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
Also helps that I grew up with Mario Party 2, so I am an ace at mini games in it.
Oh gosh.
Although nothing. We played like the just entirely luck-based one, the Honeycomb Havoc one, where it's like you just hit a block to make coins and stuff fall down. We played that one like 7 times in those 50 turns. I was so upset about that.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Anyway, Ayame says, like, Chinatsu's no phone dad that, like, oh, my sis says she's never even seen him smile. I feel like, Inota could have his, like, entire existence erased by this man. But while she's talking about it, Kyo's thinking to himself quietly, he thinks she means Chinatsu Senpai's dad is like me, since I rarely smile. And I don't know, something about that really does get me, that, like, he's now still, like, hung up on her. So, like, he's reading, like, into everything she says in terms of her thoughts on him. And I feel for this man.
Yeah, like, poor Ayame is not talking about him, but he has no option but to, like, think, like, I bet she means me. And you're like, no, dog. Like,
she doesn't like me.
Just talk about your feelings. Like, you can't do anything really because she is in a different relationship. But, like, if you were honest with your feelings, things would probably be better for the both of you.
Just wait 3 weeks.
Yeah. this probably isn't going to go great.
But he also thinks to himself, is she saying that Chinatsu's Senpai's dad is like me? Which means Taiki will probably be fine. Because, of course, he and Taiki get along great. Cut over to the apartment. Taiki has gotten in there ahead of Chinatsu's father. And so he's like, yeah, he said that I don't have to cook dinner, but there were leftovers, so I made curry udon. So he's putting that all together. He's pouring it out. Chinatsu's dad comes in, and he's brought boxed lunches. And so Taiki's like, oh, you bought food for us. Okay. And in a very nice gesture, her dad starts to say, like, we can have these tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, so he's like, you made us dinner, we can have these tomorrow. But instead, Taiki takes it one further. Is like, let's have a little party.
Yeah.
And we'll just have both of them together. And so they unpack them and stuff, and Chinatsu's dad says, I mean, can you, like, eat all of that?
This is
and
my
Taiki
favorite
says,
moment.
I am a second-year high school boy on a sports team.
Yeah, he's like nonstop. He's like, you will have to stop me from eating. Like, there is no meal I cannot conquer.
He brings up while they're eating, this actually reminds me when Chinatsu Senpai made me omurice for my birthday.
That moment is he, like, slowly looks, and this man is chewing curry as loudly as possible, which I didn't even think was possible, but, like, there's an audible chew sound to every motion.
So Taiki starts to get like, oh no, I brought up, like, an intimate moment with his daughter. I'll just shut up now. But instead, Josh's dad says, she made a cake for me. When she was little, she made a cake for my birthday. She drew a face that looked like mine in the center. And Taiki's like, oh, she did that with me too. So I guess she's just always like that. But he says Chinatsu was really into baking back then. And so she and her mom made all sorts of things. And there were, like, cookies when I came home. I distributed them at work and stuff. But she stopped being interested in baking after a time. And then when she was in kindergarten, she was really into shogi. She said she was going to be a shogi master. She got into magic. She got into swimming. She was into all these different things. she only stuck with basketball in the end. So when she told me she wanted to go to nationals here, I allowed her to stay in Japan. But I held her to my own selfish expectations. I thought with that level of determination, she was fully committed to playing basketball. I thought she'd be able to achieve results. And he recalls, of course, the awkward conversation he had with Chinatsu the previous day where he, was like, you didn't get into nationals, and, acted like she was a failure. And he says, I suppose I'm disappointed by those selfish expectations I had set. So Taiki thinks about this for a second, and he calls Chinatsu's dad father-in-law. There is I can't remember exactly what it is, but there is a term that is specifically like a term of endearment for father-in-law that sounds a lot better to call someone.
Yeah, daddy-o.
I wouldn't say that, but
yeah, you're like, hey, don't worry about it, daddy-o. Let's go on a run tomorrow morning.
In the same way that, you might call an older person like Oji-san or something like that.
There is Daddy-o-san.
Daddy-o-san.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. So he asked him hey, do you regularly exercise? He says, well, I go to the gym. And Taiki says, well, if you go to the gym regularly, then, you don't have your gym here, so you probably don't feel like you're actually getting your exercise in. So let's go on a run together tomorrow. Jonsu's dad's like, what the fuck is this boy doing? What's going on here? Making me work out.
I just like that this, because I'm now starting to see the story is not centered on Chinatsu's dad at all, but because Taiki almost has side character energy despite being the protagonist, I feel like I'm relating so much. I'm also not a 16-year-old child anymore, so
right.
I'm much closer to Chinatsu's dad's age, so I'm also just Jesus, this kid, it's nonstop. He's making food. He needs to go on a run. It won't end. Chinatsu, you poor girl. What have you signed yourself up for?
Yeah, and we see them the next day going out for a run, and Chinatsu's dad is still who is this boy that Chinatsu's gotten entangled with? And Chinatsu's I hope that my boyfriend's doing okay.
Yeah.
It's cute, and it's very nice to see Taiki. Although he's clearly struggling a little bit, he seems to be handling himself incredibly well, and that's just very encouraging to see this obstacle that seemed like it was going to be such a big deal well out in advance.
Yeah.
Be something that he's handling with a lot of grace.
Yeah, absolutely. Taiki is absolutely kind of showing a lot of good sides of himself here, and I appreciate that. I think it says a lot about his character as a boyfriend, and also just as a person, to see that he is taking this so seriously and kind of doing really well at it. He didn't get super discouraged at that conversation with dad the first night. He kept trying at it. It's hey, I can make leftovers and stuff like that. It just seems like he's really giving it its all, and I appreciate that. It's one of those things you're all right, this is the reason why both Hina and Chinatsu fell in love with Taiki, is he just has a real go-getter spirit.
And it's also nice to see that Chinatsu's dad has been thinking about how he has been acting towards his daughter, and now to see that overtly explicitly stated.
Yes.
As opposed to just getting little hints of from his facial expressions.
Yes.
All right. Quinn, we have put it on for long enough. It's finally time to talk about Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 16, The Singularity of Fate! Featuring a Glamour magazine cover with Ada on the front, and the tagline, "Love looks not with the mind, but with the eyes." What the fuck does that mean?
It does seem like the kind of line you'd put on a fashion magazine, just be yeah, sure, whatever. Just put whatever on it, dog. Who gives a shit?
All right. There is a...
holy shit. This is... I know it's not...
There's a 6-page long explanation of the space-time ninjutsu that Boruto's been using recently. Honestly, I don't think we actually learn anything from this long explanation that you couldn't surmise from viewing stuff up to this point.
You know how, like, sometimes in manga, when they do a technique, they have to do, like, a really chibi, simplified version to make sure the audience connects and understands, like, what actually happened? And, like, usually it, like, dumbs it down. This is the exact opposite, where they take a relatively simple to understand technique and they just over-explain it for just, like, 6 straight pages. And this is a small fraction of, like, what actual content happens in this chapter, but this felt like fucking an eternity reading.
Yeah.
It's just so much dialogue to explain a technique that is not that complicated.
He can teleport to metal. That is what he can do. Yes. He can imbue metal with chakra, use that to detect where it is, and teleport to it. We are told specifically it is not the flying Raijin that Minato uses, but that it is very similar. It is almost identical, but it's not the same because it works on the space-time ninjutsu thing instead. Also, we are told that he uses different symbols in the metal objects he throws because that lets him detect different chakra signatures with this. I don't know why that is, but it just is. And I even started to have a little fit in my head of like, but if you can't see it, how can you feel the difference in the radiation the chakra gives off based on the shape of the object? I don't think that's how that works.
You're like 400 miles away.
I was like,
you're like,
it's chakra, who cares?
Yeah, you're like 400 miles away. You're like, that's the triangle. I'm looking for the circle. And you're like, yeah, dog, sure, I guess.
So this is how we just get this whole thing explaining like how this works. I'm not going to go into detail on like the ins and outs of how he does his stuff, but I want to bring up 2 points regarding this. One, this is just bad battle shonen planning to give Boruto this technique at the same time we see that he has all the different Rasengan stuff. Because the Rasengan that he used on Code that put the momentum of the earth inside his body or what the fuck ever, he learns that in the same break that he learns the space-time ninjutsu in terms of what we, the audience, get to see. They are completely different power sets. They have completely different applications, and he just has both of them now. It's not good shonen escalation to do that. This should, at the very least, have been something that he has one in the pocket and employs and deploys it much further down the line after we see him do the one. It's just dumb to put them both out there like this. 2, you remember how Naruto would learn techniques in the original series? How you would see the stuff that he went through in order to learn them, working really hard, going to different people and trying to learn lessons from them. Kashin Koji tells Boruto, you learn this in the future, and then he learns it off panel. It's not an interesting way for him to learn stuff. This is bad.
Yes.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's real rough. When I first read this chapter, and then I think you mentioned to me today, you were like, I guess I could finally put it off. It's the thing I mentioned. I was like, enjoy an absurdly long exposition of a technique, and that's pretty much it. It's all just a lot of Kashin Koji talking about, like, in the future you're cool.
Singularities.
So you can do the cool thing now. But here's like 1,700 word bubbles to describe that action.
And then the next several pages are Kashin Koji explaining, you're a Time Lord now, you see, because I can see fate, so you are now operating separate from the way of destiny. You are a singularity of fate. Also, there are multiple times throughout this explanation where we keep just like cutting to a panel of Boruto to see his reaction to what Kashin Koji is saying. Every single panel looks like this.
Yeah.
He just stares blankly. He's not making an interesting expression. He never changes the expression. So we have to cut to him to get his reaction, which is no reaction, because he doesn't change his facial expression. Cool. So Kashin Koji says all that stuff and then says, you're a singularity like me. And then he knows Ada is watching them and says, you're going to see this sooner or later too, so you're also going to be a singularity. And so she's like, huh. Okay.
Cool.
Use that to transition to Ada, who is in a room with Sumire and Sarada. And Sarada has asked her to, like, try and spy on Boruto and figure out what the hell he's up to and stuff because, he's off on his own. And she's like, what the hell is my teammate doing right now? What I have to find a way to help him because no one tells me anything. So Ada says, well, at the moment, Boruto's not really saying much because she is looking into the past to see this whole conversation with Boruto and Kashin Koji. You can tell because Boruto has his hair down.
Whoa.
So she says, I think that he's doing this for reasons, and he's probably doing it to prevent me from, having you guys get in danger. So, but Sarada's like, well, yeah, but I can't just let him do all this stuff on his own. And anyway, where is Boruto? Like, I gotta do something. And then Sumire says, Sarada, women have been too involved in Boruto thus far. We have to be involved less in this plot. We have to stop getting in there with our estrogen and our expels.
I know I've already made this joke, but it is astonishing. They could fail the Bechdel test so constantly. Like, these poor girls have nothing else to do except talk about the boys in their lives. And it's so exhausting.
This is astonishing because Sumire interrupts the conversation they're having about Boruto to have a conversation about Boruto.
She's like, hey, I know we're all interested in, this fugitive guy that apparently, had reality written around him and, one of our friends who was desperately trying to avoid things.
You gave him a hug, though. Hussy.
But can I stop everything to be like, that was not very girl boss of you, friend. Okay, I have the feelings for him, so what the fuck was up with that girl? And you're just like, I'm sorry. I understand that you were supposed to be 12 years old, and this is a very understandable thing for 12-year-old girls to fight about, but the series is so monumentally stupid and serious at the same time that I can't take this conversation seriously. It just reads like Kishimoto saying how do I add some drama to the scene? What if the girls fought over Boruto a little bit? And you're like, come on.
And on top of that, it's not even just that. It's also that she gets to that point by saying, you being involved put Boruto in danger. It's like, Sarada helped him beat the chakra tree guy.
She got attacked.
What the fuck?
She didn't, it's not as though she instigated anything. They got attacked by the chakra tree people.
Listen, we're a village of ninjas, and we have to be ready for war at any time. But when we're attacked, you need to let the men fight and get out of the way.
Yeah, this isn't the best moment for the women. Hey, but Nick, by the end of this chapter, I bet one of them's going to go on a mission, and it's the one you expect. It's not going to be the student president one. Who I like how she eventually calls her out. She's like, why the fuck are you still calling me student president? I have a name.
Honestly, I'm surprised that I keep her name straight because she is almost never called that.
Yeah.
And also, she's just mad at Sarada for oh, how dare you hug him when you saw him for the first time in 2 years? How dare you? You know I had feelings for him. The only part of this that I like, and I think it's because it's trash, is that Ada is watching all this and she's like, oh my god, the drama.
she's like, I can't say anything. I can't even twitch. But this is so fucking good. I love these girls just tearing each other apart over bullshit. Things are so much more serious than than how they're dealing with this conversation.
Sumire gets upset and runs off, and I don't know if that girl is wearing underwear, and I'm concerned for her. All right. Then Shikamaru calls on Ada and is like, hey, can we talk? We very briefly get a conversation between the daimyo and some of the elders. God, who cares? Moving on, Shikamaru talks to Ada and says, I don't know why I have to meet with you in person because, you make guys go goo-ah-gah over you. And Ada says, well, I don't want the sensory unit eavesdropping. Also, I think it's funny. Good for you, Ada. She escapes this chapter with the most dignity, honestly.
Yeah, can I get my MVP now, Nick? It's going to be Ada.
I mean, if we're talking about it in terms of most valuable to their series, I can understand the argument. So Shikamaru asks, like, what's going on with the sand right now? And she says, well, all the stuff that you knew about already from your report, basically. But she does, note the things that she eavesdropped on the chakra tree people on, which is that Ryu can probably undo the Jutsu on Gaara and get to him as his target. So Shikamaru's like, all right, well, we need to take down Ryu then. So I'm going to organize a mission to Sunagakure. But Ada says, I need you to know what I'm telling you is stuff I learned from a few hours ago. It's not something I learned in the moment, because whenever I'm using the Senrigan, there's this annoying divine tree guy who can actually look into my eyes. So that's an important thing that we get confirmation on how that works now. So she can't just spy on them in real time. There is an actual counter to that. Fair enough. So she says all that and then says, by the way, you helped Boruto escape, didn't you? And Shikamaru's like, oh, no, what you're talking about. She's like, bitch, I have freaking see everything eyes. Don't play coy with me. And she says, look, I'm not going to try and endanger your position. And also, I don't want to cause trouble for Boruto. And then she says, Kawaki's going to team up with him for now. If you want something done about the divine trees, you should let the two of them handle it. Then Shikamaru says, Boruto's got some sort of mystery accomplice, which I think is Kashin Koji, because I saw a toad earlier. Have you seen him? And a toad comes out of Ada's hair. So, okay. and Kashin Koji starts talking to Shikamaru through the toad, and Shikamaru makes a lot of weird faces while he's talking with the toad throughout this. It's very weird how put off he is by this.
He's like, did you know there was a frog just hanging out in your hair the whole time?
I'm like, hair? What the hell?
Are you not the Hokage? Do you not have a little bit better of a poker face than this?
Kashin Koji says, hey, you should send Konohamaru, Sarada, and Mitsuki to the land of wind. And Shikamaru is like, what's happening?
The entire conversation, he is a deer stuck in headlights. He has no fun. He's like, I never thought I'd have a conversation with the frog. And they're like, this should not be that crazy. The last Hokage used frogs as messengers. And he's like, yeah, I know, but it's just real fucking weird to see it happening with you.
So Kashin Koji as well says, look, don't let Himawari outside Konoha. Don't let that female character do anything. Yeah. Don't you do it. But he points out, for whatever reason, Jura is obsessed with Konoha's culture, so he won't just wage war on here. So keep her here. He won't attack directly. Also, if he shows up at the bookstore, just treat him as a customer. Don't provoke him. Let him go to the bookstore. Then Kashin Koji's toad starts to hop off, and Shikamaru goes wait, where are you going? And so then Kashin Koji's like, I am very glad you helped Boruto escape. You followed your heart, going against the laws of your village and your companions. You did what you believed was right. I will not coerce you. Keep following your heart to achieve a good future. Boing. Hops off. Shikamaru is like, I need a cigarette after that for some reason. Ada says nothing, except she thinks to herself, follow your heart. Sumire, let's check on her. Oh, she's embarrassed because she, did all that she did. Anyway, let's check in on Sarada. She needs a jacket that fits her. She has been sent on this mission with Mitsuki and Konohamaru, just like Kashin Koji recommended. She is deep in thought.
It is very astonishing when you see the full body shots of Sarada where you're like, oh yeah, they really let you ninja like that. They really let you go out and ninja dress like that. That's crazy.
With your leg warmers and no pants.
Chunky high heels and your ill-fitting jacket. It makes sense when you, hang around town. But I guess I always thought when you went on a mission, they were put in a goddamn chonin vest. What the fuck are you doing? Get your shit together.
She is in thought because, oh man, my gal pal likes the same boy I do. Oh no, these complicated teenage thoughts. And then Konohamaru says, well, don't space out. or the Sand Ninja will make fun of you. What is wrong with you, Konohamaru? What happened to you? You were smarter as an 8-year-old kid. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
He's a Nepo baby, Nick. It makes sense.
That is true. The people from Gaara and Ryu's group that we saw before show up, Yodo and Araya, and they're like, welcome to the land of the wind. I am here to compete with Sarada for worst female ninja outfit.
Nick, just because she's got a little bit of a whale tail creeping up there.
A little bit?
This because she's rocking those Lita from the late 90s pants where I was like, I always gotta have the thong showing up. Something that iconically in the video game No Mercy, you were allowed to customize the color of the thong. They were just like, you can do whatever color you want. I was like, wow. You can't even change the color on Stone Cold's vest sometimes, but they made sure you could do this. They're like, you would only wear black, stupid.
So they all get up on a big old rock to spy and stuff. Mitsuki and Konohamaru talk about the mission a bit. Yodo shows up and sits next to Sarada and says, your aura's changed. Are you into a guy now? God.
Ninjas have developed the worst techniques in the future. Like, they should have developed, like, cooler fireballs, and instead they developed, like, horny vision. Just be like, I think she might be thinking about a boy.
Matsuri and Ryu, yeah. Those are the two tree people who are here. They see what looks like, I guess, the corpse of one of Kashikoji's toad spy things. And I like the pose it's making because it's like those like really, really tiny frogs that can't jump.
Yep.
So they're there. That's the end of the chapter. Every single time that you think that Boruto has plumbed the depths of quality, we find a new cave to go into to dig down into the Earth's core. Boy, oh boy. Moving on!
Yeah, not great. Not great.
Chapter 185 of Chainsaw Man! The aging devil is watching Denji run around, trying to find a way out of his world, and he just says, this world, I didn't give it an exit, okay? Look around you. Every tree you see here was human. Every one of them spent like a couple thousand years thinking of ways to get out, and they arrived at some kind of answer, and they turned into trees. My power doesn't turn them into trees, by the way. It's a mechanism innate to humans. When they reach the culmination of thought, they turn into trees. If they lived longer, they could discover unseen concepts. I want humans to live longer to find those possibilities, even if it comes at a cost. In reality, the aging devil is with that council of people from the government that were brokering a deal with him. The really, really old guy is acting as the aging devil's stool at this point, and is just letting him sit on him. And he says, like, yes, for Japan, for all mankind, I must live longer and lead the world in the right direction. Yeah, all right.
Sure, cool. This is another fun thing to just envision as a reality.
And the aging devil challenges Denji and says, you've lived for less than 20 years. How do you intend to escape on your own? And Denji's just got this goofy smile on his face as he's sweating from his run, and he says, I ran to make myself hungry, because unlike your other prisoners, my stomach isn't here. And he goes over to Asa, who apparently had been clued in on this plan, and she says, all right, I made one for you. I'm usually much better at making things, and gives him a makeshift axe crafted from a branch and the tooth of one of the devils that Denji puked up. And Denji picks up the axe, and our old lumberjack buddy turns to one of the tree people and takes a swing at it. Just chops into this tree that can feel. Like, the face on it goes, ah!
Well, it doesn't make a noise, does it?
it seems to react.
It seems like it's in pain, but I should note that I don't believe the tree makes any noise beyond like being made of wood and going like thump.
Right.
So I do like the idea that it's just, like Denji's just like, well, the tree didn't scream, so it's okay. And you're like,
fine.
oh, the face is screaming though.
Also, I guess that face could just be petrified of that expression for before he swung at it. But the one guy that they came across that is still human comes down from the tree that he's grabbing onto, and he's like, "That's not a tree! That's a person!" And Denji says, "I know!" and keeps on swinging the axe until guts and blood spill out of the tree, and he just scarfs it down while Asa and the other guy look on in shock. And then Denji pulls on the ripcord on his chest, and in the real world, Chainsaw Man gets up and regenerates, while Denji says, "I'm counting on you, Pachita." The aging devil observes all this, says, "I see," and then looks to all the government people and says, "Members of public safety, it seems Chainsaw Man is going to come here." So, hooray.
I really like this as a solution. As said, like, I think there was a lot of worry that this would end up being resolved in a very similar way to the Eternity Devil, and I do feel like conceptually there is a difference here in that they're like, look, we are not escaping by some thing that we're like, there's going to be a pre-established rule that gets us out of here, and it's not just going to be Asa taking the domain. Doesn't work that way. We have a different way. Denji's sort of relinquishing his control of the body. The Pachita Black Chainsaw Man's gonna do it. But Denji figured out a way to get that kickstart. And I was like, that's pretty clever and cool. I like that. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty stoked to see this happen. We've been kind of in this weird period with Chainsaw Man where, like, a lot of the chapters haven't really felt, like, super exciting. Like, I haven't really gotten, like, finished a chapter, but like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. This is the one time I'm like, oh, I really can't wait to see what happens next. This actually seems like it's going to be super exciting.
And I do love that very understated reaction from the aging devil. Like, well, Chainsaw Man's going to come and try and kill me now.
What can you do?
All right. Astro Royale, Chapter 31, Yotsurugi Karma. Last time, Kinpa discovered that her invisibility thing also lets her refract light and shoot it as heat beam lasers. She is shooting heat beam lasers at Himuro, who is complaining about how hot it is now and how it's burning and stuff. It burns away his ice, evaporates the ice that has Hibaru and Reiri imprisoned, and Hibaru is totally fine. Reiri, like, collapses because she was frozen for a while. Makes sense. And Himuro is just like, damn it! Hibaru demands he give up. Kuran and Tarasu both show up as well. And Himuro's still got his, like, gun arm thing, but it's no longer in, like, a cannon mode. It's clearly been disabled. And he's worn out after using the drugs, the asteroid drug. So he's like, well, I suppose you can finally get your revenge. And Kinpa says, I'm not going to finish you off. Hand over your link. She doesn't explain herself. She's just like, no, I just won't do it. And, but he says, kill me. Wanting revenge against me is what got y'all riled up. Emotional pain makes people stronger. Okay. Then he says, Kongo Yotsurugi killed my father. The desire to avenge his death is what kept me going. And everyone goes, wait, our dad killed your dad? What?
What's going on? Hold on.
And Himuro says, my family's construction business began to decline when I was in high school. At the same time the Yakuza started coming and going. It was Kongo Yotsurugi's fault. All my father did was bow to him. I couldn't stand it. I hated the way Kongo smiled like a king lording over him. That's why I joined the organized crime division. And I arrested a whole bunch of Yakuza from the Yotsurugi family involved in my dad's business. But when I investigated more, I discovered the Yotsurugi family was a legit organization, separate from its past misdeeds. Kongo paid off Dad's debt? What's going on? I thought Yakuza were supposed to be all bad. Then he went to his dad's place, walked inside. His dad had hanged himself and left a note saying, I lived my life the way I wanted. Don't blame yourself. And Himuro's...
Signed, Daddy-o-san.
Right. Himuro's narration says, my actions severed Dad's ties to the Yotsurugi family, and unknowingly, I ended up driving him into a corner. And Himuro looks at them and says, don't blame myself, then who should I blame? And he holds up in the present the Daybreak Ore and says, this is the Yotsurugi family's karma. So what he meant by, your father killed my father, was... my father was in debt to your father, but he paid off that debt, and then, because I arrested your father's men, my dad didn't have business support, and so he felt like he needed to end his own life because of my actions, which are your dad's fault. And that's okay to be the reality of the situation. Like, that's fine if to have that be like, oh, he blames this and stuff because he is deluded by hate and stuff like that. But his own explanation is, your father killed my father. Actually, I killed my father. I feel guilty about it. And it's just very weird that he says this in the span of like 4 pages. He goes from one into the other without any ramp up. Anyway, he takes the Daybreak Ore and says, I know what I did was wrong, but that's the path I chose. Eats the Daybreak Ore. He says the asteroid... Oh no, he says the drug that was made is a prototype made from Daybreak Ore, but this is thousands of times more potent. His body explodes, and we learn that somebody watched Akira. So Himuro's body gets all blah and explodes out in all different directions. He grows a massive exoskeleton, goes grah, turns into a weird kaiju thing. He's got faces coming out of this giant demonic thing everywhere, and he says, I spent my life walking a path made of lies and brought misery to countless people. Destroying the Yotsurugi family is the only way to lift my karmic burden. Yeah, cool. So he's a weird creature now with lots of ice bursting out of him and stuff. Nobody seems as freaked out about this as they should. They're all just kind of like,
yeah, what are you gonna do?
There are faces coming out of that thing. Like, come on, guys. Like, react with horror. I don't even know how to tell you how bad this chapter is, because it's just a mess.
This is structurally a gigantic mess. We keep getting like weird extra chunks of Himuro's backstory, and every single one makes him less interesting of a character. And this is just such a bizarre, sloppy chapter. Like, I do kind of think the, like, weird, like, final JRPG boss version of Himuro's kind of cool. But as you said, like, no one's reacting to it the way they need to, which should be, like, abject shock and horror. This is so unlike anything you've seen in this world to this point. Like, this is, like, I understand you, like, your older brother has, like, fucking gravity powers. This man is, like, a 90-foot tall skeleton angel with, like, ice geysers on his back. Like, you should be like, what the fuck is going on? Instead, fucking Ibarra is just like, it's like, come on, dog. You gotta give me something here. Have an emotion in this moment. Like, even if it's, like, a Luffy, Goku, like, an eagerness to fight this giant monster. Give us something.
Yep. All right. Let's do Hima-Ten, Quinn.
Let's do Hima-Ten, Nick.
Number 20. Up the mountain!
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going into the mountains now. Hima is very, very happy about this. Also, I really like the jackets everyone's wearing. They're nice, comfy, and I like the color balance on them. So she's really excited to hike the mountain, to which Iamori's like, I didn't know you were like outdoorsy and stuff. And Himari says, I work in the concrete jungle all the time, so it's just nice to get outside. Also, what the hell? Go talk to Onoka.
Yeah, she's like, why the fuck are you here, dog? You're missing critical, like, relationship beats. Like if this was like a dating sim or something like that, she's like, you're missing fucking canon events talking to an unromanceable NPC. Little does she realize he's the secretly romanceable NPC.
She's the secret, like, after the end option where the tutorial character becomes a romanceable option after you've done all the other routes.
They're like, oh, you're really good at this game. All right, well, how would you like if your little friend there was also an option?
Well, she is cute. So.
Yeah. Do you play any dating sims, Nick?
I have.
Have you played like Stardew Valley or anything like that?
No, not that one.
Okay. I started playing Coral Island, and I had this interesting moment where I had to figure out my type. It turns out it was just the person who was meanest to me, who was an option. That was all I was looking for. I talked to somebody and she's like, "Ew, get away," and I was like, "I love you, ma'am." Like,
honestly,
I hope we have kids together.
I mean, there is a reason why the tsundere is a popular archetype. Is that often they are among the most entertaining characters in that kind of cast. So I don't blame you. The twist here is that because they're on the committee, Iemori and Honoka have responsibilities that require them to be on opposite ends of the hiking line. So Honoka is leading the way, and Iemori is staying at the rear to make sure that anyone who struggles gets some help. So they have to be on opposite ends there. Also, Mayu is apparently on the committee for her class, and she's at the back of her class while they're in front, so she gets to be close to Honoka and stick by her, which I don't know even know if that's going to be relevant going forward, but it's just a nice little cute thing of like, yay, we get to hang out near each other.
Yes.
It's sweet. So they go on up, and then Himari kind of like awkwardly looks at Iemori and then is like, anyway, bye. Just goes up ahead. So then, but Iemori, as he's walking, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of by myself because like Honoka is at the one extreme end, but she is hanging out with Mayu up there, and I don't have anyone back here to hang out with me. And eventually Himari realized this. Like she's, like looking over her shoulder, and she's like, he looks like lonely. It kind of sucks that he has to like do this. So eventually, one of the other girls, she's like, "Oh, I've got a cramp, but I think I'll be okay. And Himari kind of the gears start turning, and so as Iemori is walking along, he's like, "All right, we're about halfway point," and then he comes across Himari, who is sitting on a bench, and she says, "Hey, don't leave me behind. Like, look after me and stuff." So she says, "Hey, where are the others?" And she says, "Oh, I told them to go ahead without me." And he says, "You seem really excited about the hike, though." And she's like, "Oh, I kind of got bored after the halfway point, and then my legs started to cramp up, and I kept walking on it. And, I mean, it hurts, but I guess I can keep on walking. It's fine." Obviously, she's making an excuse to hang out with the poor lonely boy.
Yes.
So, she says like, "Yeah, I figured I might as well meet up with you here and stuff." And then when he's like, "Are you sure you're okay? I've got she's got a first aid kit and everything like that." And she says, "Come on, I'm fine. And he's still acting where like, "Are you sure your leg's okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine. Stop it." And then she starts to get kind of self-conscious, and she's like, why am I acting this way? Like, I don't understand why I'm acting this way around him and stuff. Why am I, acting all sympathetic towards him? He can walk on his own. He'll be fine. But now she's in this situation. She's like, I'm just kind of embarrassed to be in it. So she's come this far, and she now just kind of has to commit, basically. But they have a little bit of a fun time when like a dragonfly lands on Iemori's head. She laughs about it, and then she says, "Oh, here, let me catch it. Lean down." And he does, and because he has to lean down and she does that, he gets like really close to her lips.
Yes.
And there's just a little moment there. But then the dragonfly moves and flies away. And he's just thinking to himself, I just saw something like really dangerous. It's like, yeah, I get that. I understand. I understand what you're talking about. Yes. He gets a little message he gets a call on his phone from Honoka, who asks like, "Hey, like Himari's with you, right? because we just finished the hike and I heard that she hurt her leg. Is she okay? And then Himari is like, oh, ow, my leg, ow, but I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Ow, but I'm fine. Because she feels, and she's like, what am I doing? Like, why am I acting this way? Like, maybe Hanako would get the wrong idea, but why am I doing something like this? I'm just like inconveniencing everyone around him. Maybe I shouldn't have done this at all. But eventually Amori is just like, hey, are you sure that your legs are actually fine? And she's like, oh, I'm fine with it. I guess actually it kind of does hurt. And briefly afterwards, he is like tending to her feet because she got some blisters. And he says, like, yeah, this makes sense. You were on a hike after you haven't been very physically active. So, yeah, it sucks to walk on those. And she says, like, yeah, it really sucks. I don't know if I can walk right now. And, of course, Miyamori immediately gets an idea. And she's like, what are you doing? No, stop. And he gives her a piggyback ride. And she's like, come on, I'm too heavy. You can't do this and stuff. And he says, like, I've got muscles from doing chores all the time. Like, chill. And she's like, but I'm heavy because I gained weight because of your cooking.
Aww.
But he says, hey, did you really hurt your leg back there? I mean, I'm just wondering if you pretended that you would hurt your leg so that you would walk with me in the back. You're just like, I would never do that. Okay. Because I feel like you're a nice enough person that you would do that.
Aww.
But she says, I didn't, though. I said I didn't. But she also says, but this was also more fun than walking on your own, wasn't it? And he's like, yeah, it was. So a cute moment between them that doesn't like go too far into, oh no, what's going to happen? It's just kind of like, yes, she does do some stupid things. I like that she is acknowledging the like, why am I acting silly right now? Because she, of course, doesn't realize how she feels about Iamori yet. And I just like that, she does do this partially just to be nice to him. And then he, in turn, makes sure that she is taken care of in a very responsible, nice way. It's good.
Yes. I enjoy that there is something being teased between these two. We bounce around a lot, but I also enjoy that right now, I feel like, at least from Himari, I think Imori is also trying to be very platonic, but I do feel like she is really trying to just be like friends, and she is not recognizing that there's any potential feelings whatsoever. And I just think that's like a fun way to handle the start of this series.
Yeah, there are different levels of it, and it's clear that it seems that one of the reasons why Iamori is able to deal with it a little better right now is that he kind of understood early on. It's like, this is an attractive girl that, and I'm a teenage guy around her, so he's kind of already taken the step of navigating that discomfort. Whereas for her, she's going from seeing him as just a classmate,
yes,
and as her coworker, to then, okay, he's my friend, and it's like, well, but he's just my friend and my person that I hire and stuff, not navigating any deeper relationship yet.
I agree with Yuri Gray. What happened to the girl who's like actually was cramping? I hope she's okay. Like if they cut to the end, they're like, we did lose one student on this trip due to the most vicious leg cramp ever known to man. But this is still considered a positive survival rate for our class, actually.
Her leg cramps up so much that it goes around her neck and strangles her.
Oh my gosh, no!
All right, let's talk about Ichi the Witch. 12th Hunt, the Kindake magic. Mushroom magic that we saw before has started growing giant mushrooms all over the forest, and there are spores that grow out everywhere. They overwhelm the town. They're really worried. All the townsfolk are about this. They are reporting all of this to Togeise, the Silver Snow Witch, and she's very proper, and she's got her glasses on. She's saluting properly. She's like, I vow that I will. And Ichi is also there. He's like, oh man, giant mushrooms! Whoa! Getting up on the roof, talking about, wow, mushrooms! That how many people would be able to just eat them?
Yeah.
That's a good point. And then he just says, "Hey, Komugi, do you like your mushrooms grilled or sautéed? We could go and harvest some big mushrooms."
Yeah, I mean, like, legit, though, it's also like, why are we not slicing some of these up and making, like, a little feast? We might be able to solve world hunger right now.
And I love that, he's up on the wall looking at all this, and Deskros just says, like, we should have gotten a child harness for this guy. Togise uses some of her magic to get a cool breeze to blow Ichi back down off his perch, and she says, "You've got quite a bit of confidence, don't you? The more of you I see, the more I know I'm right. Someone as crude and lackadaisical as you, a public face of Mantinelle? No, utterly unacceptable. You are aware that this is a contest, correct?" And she recaps all the things that are at stake about whether, he's going to just be given the role of a witch or if he's going to have to be taught by her. And she recaps all of this and is like, "You know all this, right?" And Ichi just thinks to himself, I mean, this is news to me.
He's like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, he just looks at Deskros and says, like, "I think someone forgot to tell me all this." And Deskros just says, "I figured that it would be quicker if I just brought you here."
You didn't seem like the smart type, so I thought we'd just carry on until you found out what was going on.
And Togise, paints her a picture of how Ichi's lessons will go. She says, "I will personally oversee your education 12 hours a day, every day. I suspect in 3 years you'll be a perfectly respectable witch." And so Ichi says, "But when will I go hunting?" "Well, you won't." "Fishing?" "You won't." "No!" So he says, like, "I can't sit still for 5 minutes. No, feral children belong in the woods." And yeah, okay. So, and then there's also just a sweet note, because again, Deskros is like, "Yep, that's how he is." But he also says, "And Komugi will teach me." Aw. I just like the faith that he has in his friend. Togise reiterates the rules of like, okay, look, you can have as much advice and assistance from your team members as you want, but only you or I can capture the magic. Enjoy your last days of freedom. And she starts to walk off, and Deskros to be like, "Togise, the mushrooms are that way." So this is our Zoro character, our Ryoga character. Don't have no sense of direction at all.
I get your Ryoga reference now because I started watching the reboot anime on Netflix.
I haven't, but that's probably why it's on my mind.
It's good. I definitely enjoy it.
Okay. So Komugi's really nervous about this and like, what are you going to do? How are you going to go through this? And Ichi thinks of this, again, of course, in terms of hunting. And he says, like, typically hunting is one-on-one between hunter and prey. But it's pretty typical for two hunters to target the same prey. If death for death is fulfilled, then the other hunter becomes the hunted. That's all. I will not be outdone on a hunt. Cool. Don't kill her, though.
I don't think he's going to kill her, but it does sound like he's prepared to if it comes to it.
I don't think that he would hesitate if she tried to kill him. He says if death for death is fulfilled, and Togise will not try and kill him unless she is really, really quick.
She wants him to be his little fucking student or whatever, like to train him and everything, so
they start to head off, and Deskros is like, "Hey, let's prove that you're an outside dog, not an inside one." No respect for him.
Sad.
She starts to lead them off. As they go, Ichi passes by a mysterious figure carrying a staff and wearing a wide-brimmed hat. And Ichi does, look over his shoulder and watch them go for a bit, but Komugi gets his attention. So, mysterious figure. They head over to the mushroom forest, and there are, of course, big old mushrooms, and they also see that Togise has been here because there are huge walls of ice. Deskros is like, yeah, it looks like she used a wall of ice in order to block off the town for protection so that, mushrooms don't expand in this direction. She's probably just going to freeze them all solid and then get the magic from there. Delineating a field of battle is a basic tenet of magic hunting. So she keeps on analyzing all this stuff, and she says, "Well, why don't you announce yourself?" And Ichi's like, why do I have to announce myself every time? I mean, look, if the thing hasn't shown itself at all, it's probably a really timid one. And then the Kimadake spirit just pops up on Komugi's shoulder. It's just kind of like hanging out there. And of course, Komugi gets freaked out by it. It gets freaked out by her. And says, like, the way you were just standing there made me think you were a tree. You could not have been standing there more than a minute.
Yeah.
So he asks why they frozen his mushrooms, and Ichi says, well, we're here to hunt you. And the mushroom says, like, me? Oh, well, then that must mean that you guys are big fans of mine. And Ichi's like, no, we're here to hunt you. He's like, what are you talking about? Why are you here to kill me? And Deskra says, you're smothering a forest in mushrooms really close to a town. That's a human hater magic thing to do. And the Kiyoshi spirit says, like, wait, why? Why don't you get it? They're mushrooms. What's wrong with being more... What's wrong with there being mushrooms around? Everyone loves mushrooms,
Everyone loves mushrooms, Nick.
Mushrooms are worshipped as gods, aren't they? Don't everyone offer up the holy ritual shroomy shroom dance once a week?
Shroomy shroom dance? Wait, does he actually say shroom dance?
The holy ritual shroomy shroom dance.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. I love this guy.
And Komugi's like, no, what are you talking about? Discurse is like, what are you talking about? And Ichi says, that sounds fun.
I'd do the shroomy shroom dance. It sounds like it'd be a good time.
Yeah, Deskar says, like, we're going to acquire you. You're causing a lot of trouble. And the spirit says, well, I had no idea that mushrooms are so unloved. Fine, then. If you don't love them, I'll make you all into mycelium mats. I am the Kinake magic, and for my trial, you must cut this stem and harvest me. If you can catch me, I'm going to run, turning people and animals into mats and spreading mushrooms everywhere I go. Anyone who doesn't worship mushrooms doesn't deserve to live. Also, he seems to be crying as he goes.
Yes, there are tears. Nick did a great line reading on this character, so if we do a WMR lives on it, we already know what we're gonna do. Yeah, I love this guy. I love this little mushroom. I truly can't describe the joy that I feel going from shark magic to mushroom magic. I feel like it is targeting me and my weird fantasy niche favorite tropes so specifically. I just hope the next one is a robot magic. Like, if we can nail that, I'm like, they got all of them. Everything Quinn loves in one series.
The machine Dramon magic.
Yeah, they were like, it's like a machine. It's like a robot. Kind of like a robot dragon. More on the robot part. But yeah, it does have two giant cannons on its back. I'm like, well, you got me.
Oh man, it's gonna give them trouble for like 3 episodes, guys.
It was only 2. Thank you very much. He shows up in the first episode, interacts with nobody, and then they meet him in the second episode and kill him. I can recall this quite perfectly.
While I was War Greymon, I sliced you up good. And he did.
It was me sitting there. I was like, oh, so we're not going to do like a Puppetmon, like 7 or 8 episodes kind of dealing with all right, fair enough. You know what? I guess fuck me.
Oh boy.
That's where that's where I really learned that I backed the wrong horse, Nick. If I find a character popular in something, you should be concerned with that character's potential like longevity. It just doesn't happen. Like I as I'm like reading X-Men, I'm always like, shit, I love the little freak of this group. Like I love the little weirdo who's never gonna get any more attention after this.
Quinn, let's talk about Sid Kraft. Love is a mystery.
Yes.
Case 2. The Great Detective and Secret Reverence.
So you had a strong reaction to Susui's chapter last week, Nick. The audience said it was one of the most painful experiences ever had. I saw quotes accusing you of treason, actually, was the crime placed. There were some strong thoughts. Do you have any rebuttal to those people?
I will not apologize.
All right, there we go. Nick says, I hope your shitty manga with its bad mysteries is better in chapter 2.
I like this chapter better.
There you go.
Honestly. So.
There you go.
All right. So we kind of just reiterate the premise in the beginning of this chapter with Sid, like, of course, is our detective protagonist who is obsessed with romance and all that stuff, doesn't like being a detective. His assistant, who is secretly a girl, Elio, is there and is being left to their own devices on while Sid goes to step out without saying what kind of business he has. He says, "This is a job I'd like to tackle alone." Because Elio's like, "Oh, well, I'll go with you," and he says, "No, no, no, I must handle this on my own," because he's going to meet a pen pal, a pen pal who has written to him, "My most revered Mr. Sid Craft, I shall be waiting tirelessly for you at Cafe Elmo on Balkina Street, Loose." And Sid is like, "Oh my gosh, the elegance from this writing style. This is no doubt a lovely, sophisticated lady. And not only that, Ms. Luce is also an avid reader of my Bible, the best-selling romance novel, Sophia's Unforgivable Love, written by Olivia Olaine." So he thinks to himself, like, this is it. I'm going to go and meet someone who has, interest with me, and it's clearly a lovely, elegant woman, so this is my chance at romance. He's very excited as he heads off. Elio, meanwhile, is secretly tailing him, and is also kind of writing notes to themselves as they go, and says, I really want to be of use to Master Sid. Am I holding him down, though? Is that why I've been left behind on this? At that moment, Inspector Souffle shows up and kind of overhears this comment by Elio and says, that's not what's going on. There's been a string of arsons in this area, and I happened to catch a glimpse while on patrol. But that look on Sid Craft's face, he's usually so nonchalant, to see him so tense, this must not be an ordinary matter. His great detective nose must have sniffed out the case, a huge case that could be a terrorist-level threat if we're unlucky. And, okay, all right, that must mean that, Elio was left behind because of the danger involved, right? Right. Meanwhile, Sid's just like, oh my gosh, I'm sure that Luce is going to be cute. It's making me nervous. All right. So Elio is writing notes to themselves as well, saying I've learned more about Master's greatness and stuff. And Souffle says, what are you doing? And Elio says, oh, it's memos. Just writing memos to myself. I write stuff down in order to keep my head from bursting. Souffle says hey, do you want some of my fish and chips? And holds out the bottle that she's got. And she says, if you're on a stakeout, fish and chips are a must. Kind of cute.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like that she has some real fucking what's his name? Dick Gumshoe energy from Ace Attorney. Oh, yeah. She really does just show up and she's just like, hey, do you want some fast food?
Hey, you want some fish and chips?
Yeah. Hey, pal, what are you doing over there?
Hey, pal.
You ain't shoving some fish and chicks in your face. Chips, not chicks. But I'll go along to it. You're a girl, ain't you? I figured out your secret already. I heard from this guy Nick that all the mysteries are bullshit in this.
But just as Elio is accepting the offer of fish and chips, suddenly a case of arson goes up. The Cafe Elmo is on fire, and that is, of course, where Sid was headed to. So Elio is, of course, worried for her master, but Sid at that very instant comes bursting through the window, carrying a couple of people and a very happy cat. That cat's very chill about things.
Well, it should, to be honest. That cat, I it's one of those things you're like, man, ignorance truly is bliss. I am sometimes so envious of my cat that I could be having a full-on mental breakdown, sobbing, and my cat will just come up just like, you want to cuddle it? Yeah, you want to cuddle and pet me right now? This isn't for you. This is for me. He says that from the forefront. He's like, I don't want you to get any satisfaction from this. I just want you to give me attention right now because you're kind of making noise.
I have a form of empathy. It's called you having empathy for me.
Yeah. Nick, do you think that's an upgrade from Scotia, who once when I cried, got up and left the room? She was just like, oh, you're kind of bringing the vibes down.
It's really hard for me to be a happy-go-lucky puppy with you doing that. Oh, God. So Sid gets these two people to safety. And Elio and Souffle come running up, and Sid is just like, "Oh no, another case sprung up near me." I just don't like this part of the series. Like, a plot's happening around me. I just don't like it. Just it's just I don't find it funny.
Nick, I am the devil. I am here to don't take that quote out of context. I am here to offer you a deal. We'll take out this character trait of Sid being like so beleaguered to be around these things, but the vacuum pants are coming back. Like every girl's. Oh, he's hitting the button. Oh no!
I can ignore that so much more easily.
Fair.
Anyway, so of course Souffle realizes like that serial arsonist must be at work. But while she is attending to Sid, who is having this little freak out over like, I have to solve a case again, Elio spots the perpetrators very, very obviously making their way into an alley, like complete with like, we are wearing hats and carrying Molotov cocktails in a big bag around. And so by the time Souffle and Sid turn around, Elio is gone. We see that these two guys are being paid for this work. They mentioned that. And they say, "Oh man, this is great." Elio is snooping on them from around the corner, and it's like, "All right, I'm gonna prove myself useful to Master Sid. Get some evidence here." Unfortunately, their co-conspirator comes up behind Elio, cracks him over the back of the head, and they fall to the ground. And also, Elio drops their watch, and Elio looks at the watch and thinks, "I'm sorry, I couldn't be of any worth to you, Master." And we see that one of the cases that Sid solved was one in which Elio was the primary suspect, but Sid found the true culprit and offered her comfort to, and so it was like, "Hey, you're free to go here." Elio says of this is not something as crude as romantic affection, reverence, adoration. It's something like that, but much more pure, which is why Elio spotted the ad that Sid posted for a male assistant to help out. And so Elio practiced acting as a guy and says, "Okay, I am, not going to be myself. I'm going to be the faithful assistant, Elio Evelyn. If I'm going to learn beside my revered great detective, Mr. Sid Craft, gender is not something I shall need. I mean, screw that gender noise," which seems like a great quote to take out of context. All right. I am much more into this character now that we have this explanation of why she is hiding her identity from Sid. Specifically, Sid is helpless around cute ladies, and so he posted an ad that said, "I want a fit male assistant." And Elio is like, "I admire this guy greatly and want to be around him. I'm applying for this job, and I'll pretend to be a guy so that I fit those qualifications." That's why she's hiding her gender. It might help if you cut your hair, honey. I'm just saying.
Hey, it's, why do that when you can stuff it all inside of a stupid hat, Nick?
It worked out great for Ray from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. No, it didn't. Her identity was revealed in the first episode she showed up in.
Oh no!
So Elio is taken captive, tied up in a warehouse, and they're like, "All right, you've seen our faces. We got to take you out." And so they're like, "Nothing personal." And then they're like, he's got a cute face, doesn't he?
I love this one, like the Corito Prime of the group, who's just like, "This boy has such a pretty face. We should, see if he has any long hair for us to admire as well." And you're just like, who is this guy? Like, you have to imagine, like, the guy who's the brains behind this is just like, did your cousin Sal always need to come on these missions? Like, this was kind of easy. We just had to bonk a dude in the back of the head. Like, I don't know if he needs to come along.
Hey, go over and take his hat off. Like, very specifically.
It's almost like we're walking into his fetish, and he's just like, "Hey, we got this guy tied up. Why don't we, take his hat off?" Oh, and take the rest of the clothes off? No. I just want the hat off.
Take the hat off.
It's my thing.
I like it. I like it when the heads are cold.
I'm like, well, as long as no one's being hurt. I will probably be hurt after this. To be clear.
We did. Without that hat, he might get hypothermia.
The boss is like, we're also gonna kill him because he's seen our face. And he's like, oh, but it'd be real bad if he died from hypothermia without his hat. You know what I'm saying? You're like, I don't.
Sorry, kid, but this is what happens when you mess with the no hat fetish gang. I did not sign off on this gang name.
I want to be clear. This group doesn't have a name, and if we did, it's certainly not that. Some guy from the newspaper at the window, like, the hat fetish gang strikes again.
God damn it!
Shit, this is really gonna stick, isn't it?
Every time they go into jobs, look out, it's the no hat fetish gang. He's like, oh, man. This is ruining my good name as an arsonist.
I was trying to get Pain Gang going for a while. But unfortunately, it does look like no hat fetish gang is winning out.
Whew. Sid shows up in the nick of time, beats up the primary hat remover to save the day, and is very concerned for Elio's safety. Of course, someone pulls a gun, so you get a little bit of a fight where Sid's just going around doing super martial arts stuff, and Sid says, "It was thanks to the memo you left behind, Elio." And I was like, "Huh?" "Ah, the item you left in the location you were possibly abducted. Your pocket watch. Although it seemed as though it simply fell and broke, something wasn't right. The short hand was pointing straight at 7, yet the long hand was slightly back for some reason. Outside of manipulating on purpose, it would never be this way. What I learned from the unnatural position of the long hand was backwards from 7. And if you read 7 backwards, you get Neves. Essentially a memo guiding me here. Neves Port. Right, Elio?" Yes. I am not even certain if Elio did this or not. The implication seems to be that she did, because there is word rearrangement things going on with her as like a thing. Like she got Elio by moving the letters of her name around. But the way that it's explained here seems like it might have just happened by circumstances. So. Anyway, Sid beats up the bad guys, saves the day. Elio apologizes for being just an inconvenience and a burden, starts to tear up, says, "I'm a failure as an assistant." And Sid pats Elio on the head and says, "You're not an inconvenience. I was able to catch the culprits thanks to you. Besides, I'm really glad that I have someone as earnest and forthright as you as my assistant. It's okay if you make mistakes. Covering up for them is a boss's job." This is actually very nice.
Yes.
It's very sweet. And then, of course, he's like, "Oh, man, it's a good thing that I only looked for male assistants. I would never be able to do this with a girl." Elio has a Shokugeki no Soma moment. Like, that is the only way I could describe this. She's getting patted on the head and it's just like, "Oh, it's not romance, I swear!"
I had been separated from We Never Learned for a while, and we've had like other romance series in Jump, and we like commented on the fact that like Hima-Ten had like a couple things where you're like, oh, like this is fan service, but like it never really bothered me. I forgot it's because like there were series like this that just like apropos of nothing would just draw its characters naked. Like I think it's just permanently ruined my brain to some extent.
Elio has a huge surge of emotions, like, I need to write, I need to vent. That's understandable. And then later on, she, is like, goes to like meet with her editor and stuff. There is a very cute note here, which sees that one of the people that Sid saved from the fire earlier was Luce, the person that he was going to meet as his pen pal. But it's not a elegant young woman, it's a dapper older gentleman with a wonderful mustache. And he says, let's finally chat to our heart's content about the masterpiece Sophia's Unforgivable Love. And says at first like, oh, why is it this guy? But then shortly afterwards, we get a thing that says like, oh, they actually are like besties now because they have like a book club and stuff. It's like, that's nice. Yeah. I'm glad that it's not above making friends with a gentleman in this way. Elio is working through some emotions in her novels. It turns out she is the great novelist who is responsible for these books, Sophie's Unforgivable Love, Levi Olaine, which, yeah. So there we go. Yep. Much better look into Elio's character this time around, and I kind of hope that this loose person actually shows up in the future because I kind of like them too.
Yeah, I enjoyed this chapter. I thought it was fine. It didn't blow my mind. A lot of sharper readers than I picked up that Elio's name was like an anagram for the author, and I'm like, yeah, I do like that twist. It is like a fun element to add into this mix, and I don't know, it just worked. Like, you know, didn't blow my mind, but I think I genuinely like Susui stuff, so it worked.
Let's go on to Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Chapter 22, Astaroth. The person that Kiyoshi's been fighting for the last, 3 chapters, the Demon Lord guy. Kiyoshi has gathered himself after blocking the big bomb technique that Astaroth was going to use, says, I'm going to exercise the hell out of you. And so Astaroth summons a bunch of mini bombs around Kiyoshi, explodes them in an instant. Kiyoshi shields himself. He's unfazed when the smoke clears. Astaroth starts to get excited, slashes his sword. Kiyoshi dodges around them. He unleashes a big slash and cuts through a bunch of trees. But again, Kiyoshi dodges it by jumping up on the blade like Dark Link. And point blank launches Artemis while standing on the blade and tears a huge chunk out of Astaroth's body. His arm gets blasted away. He follows up by summoning a bunch of Poseidons, which Astaroth is able to counter with his sword. But then he leaves behind a bunch of bomb things, which he explodes, knocking Astaroth into the air. And then while he's in midair, he launches a Hades meteor and completely rips Astaroth's body in half, upper half from lower half. And Kiyoshi thinks he's done it. It's like, all right, I did it. I exorcised him. So now the 100 souls of the people that were sacrificed in order to summon him here, they'll go back. But Astaroth starts laughing, and his organs regenerate and start to tie the 2 halves of his body back together. And he says, I finally found my soulmate. I thought I'd be alone forever. I'm never letting you go. Who cares about Rushihara? You are mine. And he's making a face when he says this. He's very, very excited.
He's having a good time. When's the last time you've been that excited, Nick? When's the last time Nick did something with
Man, because that's not my default mode.
I was going to say, I would be pretty shocked to find out what it would be.
I probably when I did something that I struggled to do in a video game successfully.
You're like, I beat Hitman 2. I did it.
Kiyoshi is like, all right, well, this guy's really, really dangerous. I've just got to pull through and exercise him immediately. He starts to call out his next attack, but suddenly his legs give out. He collapses to the ground, and he realizes, shit, I am out of preset power. Because, of course, he's been launching big attack after big attack, big attack. But he starts to pull himself to his feet, and he's like, it doesn't matter. I've got to exercise him. I've got to protect everyone. I can't just give up. But as he is struggling to get to his feet, Astaroth approaches him and just gives him a little hug around the shoulders and says, oh, you're the best. It's too bad we only got 3 minutes. I wanted you to give me everything you've got, and I wanted to keep making a mess out of you. My name is Astaroth. I'll see you again in the Black Parade. And I'll do whatever it takes to ensure you can go all out. I'll happily kill every last human besides you if I have to. I may not look it, but I'm a pretty devoted guy. See you around. And he starts to fade away. There's invisible flames that start to swallow him up. It's a cool effect.
Yes.
And Kiyoshi, of course, realizes if he goes back to hell right now, all the souls that were sacrificed aren't coming back. So he rushes to try and stop him, but he stumbles and falls, can't do anything to stop Astaroth from going back to hell. And Astaroth says, next time, let's give it our all in a battle to the death. And then he is gone. And seemingly, all those souls, Kiyoshi couldn't save them.
Yeah.
That's our chapter.
We have talked for a while that the series felt like it was ending. And sales-wise and like popularity-wise, that did seem to match up. It sounds like there might be a potential the series might run a little bit longer. It's not entirely clear. A lot of things are still like in transit, essentially, as some things happen. We, as we just talked about earlier, Undead Unluck might be ending. So maybe there's the chance that this might slide through. The fact that this didn't end here is what gives me a little bit of hope. I'm still not going to be all in on like, Kiyoshi's the fucking, the GOAT. This is going to be the next big series for Jump. But I do hope it gets time to maybe find a little bit more of the audience and tell a little bit more of the story it wants to tell. And I like the idea that we got to see Kiyoshi lose to somebody. This character has been built to be like unbeatable, lost. And that's cool.
Yeah, it's nice that we have this where it's a failure for our protagonist at around the time that, like, if you're going to have a protracted adventure, you need to give them a failure at some point. Yeah. And this felt like a good way to do it. He didn't lose the fight necessarily, but he didn't win fast enough, and so he didn't protect everyone he was trying to protect, and that's a failure for him that he's going to have to deal with. And it doesn't make sense, yeah, you're right, for the series to end in just like a chapter or two, unless we just have a bad ending, which seems like it would be very contradictory.
That would be wild for this series.
It'd be so crazy. So
then again, I don't know. Sometimes the devil wins. What are you gonna do?
It seems like we're gonna get at least a handful more chapters before this series is out. We'll see how much we get to keep on enjoying it.
Yes, I did definitely enjoy this chapter. And I'm hoping we get to see more. We have a little short Marriagetoxin chapter. Yeah. This is just a text conversation going on between Ushio and Geto. And sorry, I'm taking this over from you, but I thought you'd enjoy the chance to just rest. Basically, they have a small moment where Ushio sends like a little photo that's just like, hey, check out the beautiful photo I did at work. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And then the next day happens, and he's like, hey, I'm in front of the front gate. And she's like, why are you telling me this? He's like, we're supposed to meet today, right? She's like, huh? Oh, shit. No. Oh, my God. I thought it was, and, like, you can see that she's panicking so much. She's, like, sending her texts early.
Yeah. And there's some cases where she's sending, like, 2 or 3 texts a minute.
Yeah. She's very sad because she's like, I got booked up with a job cleaning the aquarium, and you start a job tomorrow, don't you? So we'll just have to postpone it, essentially. And he's like, wait, actually, can I just go where you are? And she's like, what? She's like, yeah, it's the aquarium. And they have, again, he has his amazing stickers. Like, I truly assume that you must be able to get these somewhere at some point. So, yeah, we get a big color page of Ushio cleaning the inside of a fish tank. Garo stands on the outside and waves to her. It's cute.
It's such a cute and pretty picture.
Yeah, I love it.
I know that that she's probably not going to end up with Garo now, that especially we've got the Kinosaki train rolling. But she's best girl. I love her.
Oh, so. Wow. All right. Yeah, I can get on board with that. I like Ushio a lot.
New Exorcist, chapter 76. Please stop fighting. There is a color page that's desperately trying to be cool. All right, so we've gotten to the point where Gakuro and Rito are just stupid fighting each other. There's like, oh, slash. They've both dealt a tremendous wound to each other. Rito realizes that now that he has got his massacre mode or whatever, that Gakuro is practically a different person. So he calls his spirit thing over, his big wolf bear tiger thing. It knocks Gakuro to the ground, and he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna just bleed out, but so is he. Gakuro tries to go through the shadows. He also is bamfing around using Xenodark and its all other Xenodark to cast shadows around. And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter which shadow you hide in. And he does a bunch of slashes, and he's like, I'm not going to give you a chance to get close to me. But then Gakuro comes up behind him. Oh no, Quinn! He's going to attack Rito from behind really quickly.
Oh, it works eventually, doesn't it?
It actually works this time because Rito's like, oh, while I was slashing and stuff, in an instant where Xenodark's shadow and my weapon crossed, he got into my shadow. He realized, like, shit, I'm not going to make it in time. He gets struck and then just immediately spins around and is like, I'm just going to attack him while he's wide open. But as he is whirling around to attack, Gakuro goes, wait, I'm seeing double. 7 Vice Captain Ritos.
It's so funny because I know like 3 people in our Discord made the joke. The only thing I can think of is, I'm seeing doubles. 14 Ritos!
Shiroha calls out to him at the last second as both Rito and his spirit thing are attacking. He tries to block it. Splashes of blood go everywhere. And Rito thinks, I can see it. The path I didn't even have a clue about. No matter how I trained or how I longed for it. Mizuki, as long as you are here, my strength has no limits. So this is my soul armor! Oh, okay, I guess he's transforming now. Bwong! So he's got soul armor now, and he says, all right, let's end this. Okay, this is happening. He summons a bunch of swirly things around his sword. Water is drawing
Nick,
into him.
This is specifically a sword with no abilities.
Right. So...
Which I'm truly starting to, like, not understand what that meant now.
He launches a tremendous slash at Gakuro that even gets through Gakuro's parry. A thing happens. So, there is a zhoosh around Rito's form, and he goes, now I know. Even under the circumstances, with flying spray and shadows everywhere, I can tell exactly where Gakuro Yajima is lurking. There! He's targeting me, and I'll strike back right now. Bop! He just coughs up blood and collapses. He's like, no, I have to move because Gakuro Yajima is coming. I can hear him. He's right there. Damn it. Damn it. Pull back. Gakuro is also coughed up blood and collapsed. Oh my god.
They're both losers. Now they're both such dorks, and that is the intention, because the 2 women in these respective characters' lives, one of them, who is at least physically there, says, the other one just says it to the ceiling at a timely moment, like, hey, stop fighting, please, because women are soft, Nick.
Yeah.
They're soft, delicate flowers, and only men solve their problem with violence. And, this is why men go to war, Nick.
I imagine that only men in this series fight this stupidly. And as if spurred on by Shiroha saying that, both of them get up and try to charge at each other again. And it's like, that's the note you end on.
That's the opposite of what they said, guys. The opposite.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Dumb. It's dumb. I am very kind of upset because a few chapters ago I was like, yeah, kick his ass, Rito, and now it seems like Rito's just becoming more like Gakuro, and I don't like that. We got one Gakuro is too many. So, let's move on over to finish up with Akane-banashi, story 136, Still Alive. We get a proper introduction to the 4th Miroku Kashiwaya, the master of the current one in the present, and also, of course, the master of Kiroku Kashiwaya, Captain Captain Rakugo.
Yes.
And he is also, of course, the inheritor of Miroku, the venerable Myoseki of the Kashiwaya school. Urara explains all this to Akane in the present, and says that the 4th Miroku, he elevated tradition and formality above all else. He could not abide the thought of ruffians who would scrap with the Yakuza taking the stage under the Kashiwaya name. They were forbidden from playing the opening act for over 2 years. That's a long time when you're trying to get into a field like that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Because
both
I do have like a thought where I'm just like, how the fuck do these guys support themselves? Like,
yeah,
you were both hoodlums. Like, I understand you probably could have still worked to some degree at the soba shop, but like,
well, and presumably like they're being taken care of
yeah.
by Kiroku and by the soba shop owner and stuff. But Isho and Shigema, kept on studying, and I do like how we see them practicing in different ways directly next to each other. So like Isho is taking notes and Shigema is muttering to himself, like kind of muttering through his routine and stuff. But as they're working, we get some, other characters saying like, yeah, they've learned like 70 stories in 2 years. 70 stories. That is so much. And the future Miroku says like, yeah, they're like really impressive. They dedicate themselves to what they can achieve. They don't complain about their difficulties. But the older Rakugoka that he is talking with says like, I mean, that's just all the worse for them though, because in this business, your master's word is law. If he says you can't take the stage, you must obey. They've been working for over 2 years without a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's just cruel. They're going to lose their spirit at any time. The future Miroku says, you're correct, and I think my master's being rather cruel, but their eyes are still alive. They still have faith that he'll solve this for them. And the older Rakugoka is like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, that should be obvious. And of course, he's talking about Kiroku.
Yes.
Urara refers to Kiroku as an Okanban in name and fact, and most of all, a pioneer. His art started with the refined skill of the classic traditionalist, and on top of that foundation, he wove a tapestry of stories according to his own free whims, like Akane does. But she also says that this was an era where tradition ruled all. Adding anything to the classics was considered heresy, which is what made his performances so thrilling. And there are people, who are like watching Kiroku's performance from the silence and like, he's only getting laughs because he's deviating from the script, which is such a. I love when you occasionally get bits of like, performers like saying like, oh, he's cheating of other performers. It's just like, come on, guys, like you could do that too, but whatever. But there are some people who say like, I mean, I am kind of like jealous of him, but I can never like do what he's doing because I'm too afraid of what Miroku would do. But there are some saying, I wish I could experiment like that.
Sure.
Maybe he will bring change to the world of Rakugo. Urara is, still working for him as well. And I do like that we have just this kind of like unstated note of she's in an even worse position than Shigema and Isho are. Because at this point, women can't be Rakugoka. So she is like his apprentice, but not even his apprentice in name at this time. But so they say this, and she's like, I wanted to go see your performance and stuff. And Shiguma says, like, hey, good news for you. Kashiwa N, a special event that happens only once every 5 years, featuring Kashiwa's most talented performers, is happening at Yasakate, and our master is in it, of course. And she looks at them and is like, yeah, you guys can't attend, like, perform, can you? And they're like, But Kiroku says, well, they are now. I was just coming here to deliver the news. I've been put in charge of the event, so I shoved you onto the bill.
What a cool dude.
And Urara's like, oh, wow, you guys be grateful now. And of course, they're both like very serious because they're like, hey, so the person in charge of Kashiwa N throughout the years is either Miroku or the future Miroku. And Kiroku grins and he says, even my old master has to be honest about the art itself. You've been waiting long enough. I gotta at least give you a good spot for your first show. However, don't tell him that you guys are appearing on it. He just basically says, like, don't tell him about it ahead of time. Don't let this get out because he will stop it. But once you're on stage, he will be honest about your art, blow him away, and he'll have to accept you. In so many words. So they celebrate for a bit, and then we cut to later on when Kiroku is meeting up with Miroku, who tells him, I will give you the name of Miroku Kashiwaya, but in exchange, I want those 2 ruffians expelled. And of course, we know that a split happened in the world of Rakugo in the past, and it seems like this is going to be the impetus of that. We shall see.
Yeah, big stuff going on. Flashback's still good, but that is, I think, kind of the tone. It's just like, yeah, this is cool. I'm excited to see like the really dramatic like payoff to this. But right now, we're just gonna have to wait and see, and that's gonna do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. One Piece has been off as Oda has taken an extended break to be a part of the One Piece live action sets and filming. So I think we're supposed to get a chapter next week, I believe. I'm not 100% positive, but I believe we are supposed to, yeah. So
according to the current schedule on Viz.com, yes.
There you go. So no One Piece, but we had a lot of other stuff, and that leads us to the point where, Nick, we have to talk about our favorite chapter and our MVP of the week.
That is right. I am going to go with... I think I'm going to go with Blue Box. I really liked the interplay between Taiki and Hinata's father. I like the dogged act that he's putting on, trying to keep going with getting on good terms with Hinata's dad until they're allowed to, exist as a couple again.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Yeah, I feel like a basic bitch for this, but I'm going to give my chapter of the week to Ichi the Witch, which I thought was really funny. I thought Ichi was a good character. I love this little mushroom guy. And the reason I say a basic bitch is because this is the exact same audience score. My character week is going to be Taiki from Blue Box because he was just so memorable. Like, as I said, like, just reading the chapter, I related to the dad so much where I'm like, what the fuck's up with this kid? Like, how do you have so much energy to do all this stuff? It's crazy.
I'm basically just kind of approaching the same dynamic, but
you're just reverse. It's inverted. A mushroom guy.
It's Kindake magic. I freaking love this thing's energy where he's just like, what are you talking about? Everyone loves mushrooms. Don't you guys worship mushrooms as gods and dance for us every week?
I do. Okay, I don't know what these heathens and heretics are doing, but I assure you, I'm still loyal and faithful.
And also, he's so small.
he's so tiny. There was a moment, just because he has no mouth, but he still has facial muscles somehow. There was one shot where his like mouth was supposed to be kind of curled up, and I legit thought they gave him like a little tiny curly mustache, and I was like, I almost cried. Now, granted, that's not a hard thing to do, especially these days, but still, I was like, oh, little mustache mushroom?
I feel like if the Kindake magic had a mustache, it would be perfect. So I get you. Yeah, it was a fun chapter. Let's wrap things up then, I guess.
Yeah,
guys. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for following us over to the Friday recording time. We should be back on Wednesday evening next week. We will be getting the recording done sometime between 7:30 and 8 Eastern time here on twitch.tv/RoloT. And the recording will go up to its usual place later after that. weeklymangarecap.podbean.com is where we post all of the audio episodes. You can also see them on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast feed places. If you want to see the video version, we're on youtube.com/weeklymangarecap, where we have an opening sequence done by Marriagetoxin and Wednesday Cheddar, and also occasionally get some title card artwork done by the amazing Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out in various places. Just search for Steve Man art and he'll have plenty of results. And just, if you're at work, save search results on when you do it.
It's a good call.
We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/weeklymangarecap. If you want to give a bit of financial backing to the show, we have bonus episodes that are done there. We talk about Western comic books and other weird conversations that we have. If you like some of the weird things that we get into where we just go off on a tangent, it's almost like having hour-long tangents on there sometimes.
Yeah, our bonus pod for this month might be a little bit late just because I obviously had some scheduling issues that we ran into, but we're going to try to get that out very soon. And I know that the one we're going to do, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the New Mutants run from X-Men, the original one. And just to give you a preview, the easiest way to differentiate the New Mutants from the X-Men is that they go through like constant existential crises, And a lot of the time, their book is just a straight up horror story. It is a wildly different tone from the rest of the X-Men.
Okay.
So, yeah, the most well-adjusted character is the one who lived in hell for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they're just like, look, I get it. Like, this shit just happens.
That is on its way then. And if you want to, you can also join the Weekly Manga Recap Discord community. It'll be linked wherever this gets posted. Go on there. You can have conversations with our wonderful fan base.
Yes.
Just our awesome listeners who hold my feet to the fire when I say I don't like something.
That is all in good fun. It is to be very clear that you are allowed to like or dislike, any of the series we talk about. There's no issue there. But I do want to support and also say, come join the Discord. It's a really, really fun place. I'm regularly active in there. Nick pops in from time to time. Like, a lot of really good conversations. There's multiple hangout sessions from members of our Discord throughout the week. Every so often, people are getting together to have games of Magic the Gathering that I want to try to join in at some point. So, yeah, good stuff.
And also, you can use that to find the Google Doc, which is maintained by Ninja X3i, that keeps track of a lot of stuff from just the history of the podcast, series that we have talked about previously, series we might talk about in the future, if you want to leave a recommendation for a series for us to talk about in detail. And also, like, our MVP and favorite series voting is on there, and other stuff. So that is going to do it for the show. Thank you for listening to us, everybody.
Yeah, Nick, when you said Ninja's name, I was like, Nick got his name wrong. I'm gonna have to apologize to him later. I was like, he said X3I and it's X3X or X3X. And I was like, no, it's not. Why did I think that? And it's because I had mixed Ninja's name up with Charlie XCX the musician. And just assumed they were one and the same. So congratulations on Ninja for becoming an uncle recently and hosting Saturday Night Live. That's a big accomplishment. So good luck to them. Also, Brat Summer, really great time.
I don't know anything about pop music, so I can't even react to this appropriately. I've gone into a realm where I'm unarmed.
Yeah, you have no power here, Nick. You don't. There are no metal references to be found here whatsoever.